So often when we struggle in life, the first question people ask, sometimes even the one we ask ourselves, is what's wrong with me? But that question cuts like a blade. It shames us, it isolates us, it makes us believe we're broken. The more honest and healing question is, what happened to me? Because our struggles didn't come out of nowhere. They have roots, they have history. And most of the time, that history reaches back into childhood. When I see childhood trauma, I don't just mean the obvious things, violence, abuse, big dramatic events. Sometimes trauma is more subtle. Sometimes it looks like what didn't happen. Maybe we grew up in a home where no one heard us, but no one really saw us either. No one noticed when we were sad or celebrated when we were proud, or simply sat with us when we were scared. That absence of emotional presence is what we call emotional neglect. It's like a child being hungry, not for food, but for connection, comfort, and understanding. And when those needs go unmet, the child adapts. And that's the thing. Everything we call symptoms today, our anxiety, our people-pleasing, our tendency to numb out, our fear of closeness, those all began as intelligent survival strategies. If a child learns that crying doesn't bring comfort, maybe they stop crying. If being good or invisible keeps the peace, they learn to disappear. If pain feels unbearable, they learn to soothe themselves however they can, sometimes with food, screens, substances, or constant busyness. These were not flaws, these were the smartest things we could do at the time to stay safe, to keep love in reach, or to protect ourselves from pain. The trouble is, what once saved us in childhood doesn't always serve us in adulthood. The strategies keep running like old software, even when the danger is long gone. So we find ourselves locked in patterns, pulling away when we want closeness, clinging when we long for freedom, numbing when we actually want to feel alive. And this is not a you problem. It's a human problem. All of us, in one way or another, carry traces of the ways we had to adapt. And when we look at ourselves through this lens, the shame softens. We begin to see not weakness, not failure, but the wisdom of a child who found a way to survive. Would you like me to build the next section, the first story about attachment and relationships, as a natural continuation from here? Maya is 34, bright, funny, and the kind of person everyone wants at their dinner table. She can light up a room with a story. But if you asked her about her love life, she would laugh in that way people do when they're covering something tender. Her last 3 relationships had a pattern. Each partner seemed exciting at first, competent, independent, full of charm, but slowly she would realize they were also unavailable. They didn't call back when they said they would. They shut down when she tried to share something vulnerable. They kept one foot out the door. She'd tell herself, "It's fine, I'm not needy, I can handle this." She learned to busy herself with work, fill her calendar, pour into friendships. She convinced herself she didn't really need more closeness. Yet late at night, scrolling through her phone, a dull ache would surface. The kind of ache that can't be filled by distraction. If you looked closely, you'd see it wasn't only about the partner she chose. It was about the way she felt in their presence. She always leaned in just a little harder than they did. She listened more, accommodated more, softened her voice when she sensed they were pulling away. Inside, she lived with a quiet fear. If I ask for too much, they leave. This wasn't random. As a child, Maya had grown up with a mother who loved her but was often lost in her own worries. When Maya was upset, her mom's face would sometimes harden instead of soften. If Maya cried, she'd hear, "Don't make such a big deal." So Maya learned young that showing too much need pushed people away. She learned to tone herself down, to take up less space, to be agreeable rather than risk rejection. And now, decades later, the child who once needed to shrink to survive still whispered in her choices. She was drawn almost magnetically to the very kind of distance that once defined safety, closeness just out of reach. From Maya's story, 3 insights emerge. First, the way we attach to others as adults often echoes the emotional climate of our childhood homes, what we felt safe to show and what we learned to hide. Second, when our needs were misread or minimized as children, we may come to see those same needs as dangerous, even in love. And third, what feels familiar isn't always what feels good. We are pulled over and over toward the patterns that once promised survival, even if they now leave us lonely. And yet, there is another possibility, because just as these patterns were learned, they can be softened, unlearned, reshaped. The question becomes, how do we begin to loosen the grip of the past on the present? Daniel was the kind of man people described as reliable. He was up early every morning, coffee in hand, laptop open before the sun had fully risen. His colleagues admired him, always on top of deadlines, always responsive, never flustered. From the outside, he looked like someone who had it all figured out. But if you watched him closely, you'd notice something else. At night, when the house was quiet, Daniel rarely sat in stillness. He scrolled through his phone until his eyes burned. He poured himself another drink, not to celebrate, but to take the edge off. On weekends, he worked through projects no one had asked for, just to keep busy. The quiet was the hardest part. Silence pressed on him like a weight he couldn't name. What no one saw was the ache underneath. As a boy, Daniel had grown up in a house where emotions were dangerous territory. His father, strict and easily irritated, had little patience for tears or fears. His mother, though loving in her way, tiptoed around conflict and encouraged him to be strong. So Daniel learned early that feelings had no safe landing place. The safest thing was to bury them, to keep moving, to never let the cracks show. Now, decades later, his busyness and habits weren't random weaknesses. They were solutions. Ingenious, even heroic in their original context. Work gave him a shield of competence. Scrolling offered a steady stream of distraction. Substances softened the sharp edges of loneliness. Each behavior whispered the same promise. You don't have to feel this pain, not right now. And this is where compassion matters. The question isn't why the addiction. That question only points to the behavior. The deeper question is, why the pain? What was Daniel carrying that felt too heavy to face without numbing? Seen in that light, his patterns weren't signs of failure, but of an old wound trying to soothe itself the only way it knew how. We all have our versions of this. For some, it's endless work. For others, the glow of a screen. For others, still food, substances, or constant noise. Beneath each one lies a story. A child who had to find a way to survive when tenderness was missing. So perhaps the real work is not to condemn ourselves for numbing, but to grow curious, to ask, what is the feeling I'm trying so hard not to feel? And what would it mean to meet that feeling with gentleness instead of escape? Imagine you live in a house with a smoke alarm. It's there to protect you, to warn you when there's danger. But let's say years ago, there was a fire in that house. It was terrifying, and the alarm blared so loudly you thought your chest would split open. Even after the fire was out, the alarm became overly sensitive. Now every time you make toast or light a candle, it still screams as if the house is burning down. This is what implicit memory is like. Implicit memory means the body remembers, even when the mind does not. You may not recall every moment of your childhood, but your nervous system does. The alarm system inside you learned what danger felt like, and it doesn't need words or stories to react, it just reacts. It's not trying to hurt you, it's trying to protect you, the way it once did. Here's the hopeful part. If the alarm is going off, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means your body is loyal, still working hard to keep you safe. The challenge is that it sometimes can't tell the difference between the smoke of burnt toast and the flames of a real fire. Think about something simple. You're sitting in a meeting at work, and someone raises their voice sharply. Maybe it's not even directed at you, but suddenly your heart is pounding, your chest is tight, and your thoughts scatter. On the surface, it looks like an overreaction, but through the lens of implicit memory, it makes sense. Somewhere in your body, a much younger version of you remembers what it felt like to be small in the presence of anger. The alarm blares, not because you're weak, but because your body cares so deeply about keeping you out of harm. And here's the good news. Alarms can be recalibrated. Just as you can teach a smoke alarm the difference between burnt toast and a real fire, you can help your nervous system relearn what safety feels like. This isn't about shutting off the alarm. It's about helping it ring only when it's truly needed. That process begins not with judgment, but with noticing, curiosity, and a gentle kind of listening to the body that was never possible before. Would you like me to continue by unfolding the practical healing steps and closing section in the same compassionate tone? The first steps in healing don't have to be dramatic. In fact, they work best when they are small, gentle, and doable. Steps that don't overwhelm your system, but slowly teach it a new way of being. One place to begin is with awareness. Keep a simple journal, nothing fancy. Just a few lines a day, write down what happened, when it happened, and with whom, especially in moments when you felt triggered or numb. This isn't about analyzing yourself to death, it's about noticing patterns. Over time, you may see that certain situations, times of day, or relationships stir the same feelings. Awareness is the first light we shine on the places that feel dark. Next, practice compassionate inquiry. When you feel triggered, gently ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? When have I felt this way before? What might my younger self be needing in this moment? These questions soften the judgment and invite curiosity. Instead of why am I like this, the focus becomes, what is this feeling asking for? Compassionate inquiry builds a bridge between your present self and the child who once had no words. A third step is to bring the body into the process. When you notice a wave of stress, try a somatic pause. For example, place your feet firmly on the ground, take one slow breath, and let your eyes scan the room, just noticing where you are. This grounds the nervous system and signals, right now I am safe. Even 30 seconds of this practice can calm an alarm that would otherwise keep blaring. Boundaries are another piece. Choose just one boundary to practice this week, something small but meaningful. Maybe it's saying no to a request you don't have energy for, or giving yourself permission to let a call go to voicemail. Boundaries teach the body that it no longer has to endure what feels overwhelming. Each one, no matter how small, is an act of safety. And finally, seek one safe connection. This could be reaching out to a trusted friend, joining a supported group, or beginning a conversation with a therapist. Healing happens in the presence of safety and attunement. Where we were once alone, we now invite someone else to witness us. And that presence helps rewire the places that once only knew neglect. Each of these steps is about building safety, little by little. Awareness gives you clarity. Compassionate inquiry replaces judgment with understanding. Somatic pauses reset the alarm in your body. Boundaries create space to breathe. And safe connections offer the closeness that was once missing. If your pain feels overwhelming or if trauma has left deep scars, please consider seeking the support of a qualified professional. Healing is not meant to be done alone, and the right kind of help can make the journey safer and more effective. Would you like me to now weave all these parts into a full 20-minute speech draft in the compassionate style we've been building? The very first steps toward healing don't need to be heavy or overwhelming. They work best when they are small, steady, and repeatable. Gentle practices that signal to your nervous system it's safe to begin. One simple place to start is with an awareness journal. Each day, take just a minute to jot down what happened, when it happened, and with whom, especially in moments when you felt stirred up or shut down. This isn't about perfection or deep analysis. Over time, patterns quietly reveal themselves, showing you the environments and relationships that shape your reactions. Awareness is how we begin to see what was once invisible. Next, practice compassionate inquiry. When you notice a trigger, pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? When have I felt this before? What might my younger self be needing in this moment? These questions shift the focus from judgment to curiosity. Instead of blaming yourself, you open a space to understand the wisdom behind your reactions. Inquiry softens shame and makes room for self-compassion. Then invite the body into the process with a somatic pause. Place your feet on the ground, let your shoulders drop, and take one slow, steady breath while looking around the room to notice where you are. This simple act tells your body, I am here, I am safe. It helps recalibrate the alarm system that sometimes reacts as if old dangers are still present. Boundaries are another gentle but powerful step. Choose one boundary to practice this week. Something small, like saying no to an extra task when you're already stretched, or giving yourself permission to let a call wait until you have energy. Boundaries teach your body that it no longer has to endure everything. They create space for rest, safety, and choice. Finally, reach for one safe connection. This might be confiding in a trusted friend, attending a supportive group, or exploring therapy. Healing takes root in safe relationships, because what was hurt in disconnection can only be repaired in connection. A witness, even just one, begins to rewrite the story of being alone with your pain. Each of these practices helps in its own way. Awareness brings clarity. Inquiry replaces blame with understanding. Somatic pauses calm the body's alarm. Boundaries create safety, and connection offers the warmth that once was missing. If you notice that the weight of trauma feels too heavy to hold on your own, please consider reaching out to a qualified professional. The journey is gentler and safer when someone trained can walk alongside you. Would you like me to now weave the entire talk into one flowing 20-minute speech? Or keep each piece modular so you can adjust and record in sections? The path forward begins with the smallest steps, gentle enough that they don't overwhelm, steady enough that they slowly build safety inside. One step is keeping an awareness journal. Each day, when something stirs you up or shuts you down, write down what happened, when it happened, and with whom. Just a few lines. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, moments, people, or places that consistently activate old feelings. This practice helps you see with new eyes what your body has been trying to tell you all along. Another step is practicing compassionate inquiry when a trigger shows up. Instead of asking, why am I like this? Try questions like, what am I feeling right now? When have I felt this before? What might my younger self be needing in this moment? These questions don't aim to fix you. They invite kindness. They help shift you from blame to curiosity. which opens space for healing. A third practice is a somatic pause. When you notice stress rising, place your feet firmly on the ground, drop your shoulders, take a slow breath and let your eyes wander around the room, naming 3 things you can see. This grounds you in the present. It helps your nervous system realize I am here and I am safe. Even a few seconds can reset the body's alarm system. Boundaries are another way to create safety. Choose just one this week, something small but clear. Maybe you say no to a request you don't have the energy for. Maybe you protect 10 minutes of quiet before bed. Boundaries teach your body that it no longer has to endure everything. Each one is a message of self-respect and protection. Finally, seek one safe connection. Reach out to a friend who listens well, join a support group, or explore the possibility of therapy. Healing happens in relationship because pain that began in isolation can only be eased in connection. Being seen by even one safe person begins to rewrite the story of being alone. Each of these steps has its own purpose. Awareness shows you the map. Inquiry softens shame. Pauses calm the body. Boundaries create safety. And connection brings the warmth of being held. If your pain feels heavy, or if trauma memories surface in ways that feel unmanageable, it may help to seek the support of a qualified professional. You don't have to carry it all by yourself, and walking with someone trained can make the journey safer and more supportive. Would you like me to now blend this section with the earlier ones into a full, flowing 20-minute speech draft? Both Maya, who kept reaching for distant partners, and Daniel, who numbed his pain with busyness, were not broken. They were carrying old survival maps. And the tools we've just explored are like light rising through cracked roots. Even if the soil was hard, even if the roots twisted in ways they never should have, the light still finds a way through. That light is awareness, inquiry, pausing, boundaries, and safe connection. Change doesn't come in a flood, it comes slowly, gently, as safety grows. Each small practice is a win. Each moment of noticing is proof the ground is shifting. Safety first, tiny steps always, and over time, the roots that once only knew darkness can begin to drink in the light. As we close, take a breath and let this land. There is nothing defective about you. The patterns you carry were once brilliant solutions to impossible situations, and now you have the chance to try something different, one small, safe step at a time.